committee meeting. So first of all, I'm calling the meeting to order, obviously. Roll call. Let the record reflect that all members are here with the exception of Ryan Schwamberger and Dale Slaughter. We also have our new ad hoc member, Richard Green. That's his role is going to be when he can come, he can, just simply because he travels a lot. So we're just delighted to have him. And Kyle, so welcome. I'm actually just going to ask each of you to introduce yourselves real quickly to the group, your background, and both are, well, you're a full-time resident here.
Yep.
And you're a homeowner, so it's really nice to have that on here.
Yeah, I'm Kyle Tenick. I'm actually a part owner of Mug and Spoon. I kind of grew up down here and kind of lived my entire life here, even though I'm a little younger, but it's a pretty awesome area. I love it. I'm really looking forward to being part of this group and giving anything I have to offer.
Great. Well, we're really delighted to have you on board, and he's being very humble. He's also very adept at some digital type capabilities and web development and that sort of thing. So looking forward to having your expertise here as well as your feedback as a resident and a business owner. So thanks for being on board. Maybe you can take some pictures for us too. You're professional photographers,
Yes,
I understand as well. So excellent. Richard?
Great. My name is Richard Green. I'm a homeowner and a part-time resident. Live at Dover Street, 12 Dover Street. Own my home since 2000 there. A former business owner, used to own Best Bus up until last summer, and it was sold to DC Trails. I think I was drafted by my neighbor Lisa because of my background in the convention industry. I oversaw the association marketing and sales team for Marriott for the last 17 years out of corporate headquarters in Bethesda. Retired from Marriott about 4 years ago. Now I do some hospitality consulting. Actually work with two other convention bureaus, the City of New Orleans and the City of Indianapolis, in working with their customer groups and what they're looking for in destinations. So glad to be part of this.
We're really excited to have you on board, Richard, as well. The first thing we want to do is approve our minutes from our meeting held on May 22nd, 2019. We do have a quorum here, but I think maybe you guys would, if you feel more comfortable abstaining, I think that's fine. And then we still have 3 folks here. So you have the minutes here. So I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes. And I'll go name by name in case there's anyone that does want to abstain.
Second.
Okay, all right. And let's go name by name. So there's a motion and a second to approve the minutes that are included in your packet of May 22nd, 2019. So Commissioner
Aye.
Sheffer?
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Recuse.
Okay, abstain?
Recuse.
Okay, and recuse. Okay, great. So we do have a quorum, a majority that voted for them. So the meeting minutes of May 22nd have passed. In terms of correspondence, I'm not aware of any correspondence for this particular committee. Ann, okay, great. So we're going to move right on into old business. And I'm actually going to move the Wedding and Convention Center reports to the end of the meeting. Steve will be here about 1:30, so we'll talk about that at the end. I do want to now go into a couple things that, and you guys are new on the committee here, but we've spent the past, I would say, year or so that I've been the chair here, focusing on mostly the rates related to the convention center, the parks, and the weddings. So we've done a lot of that. And then we've been discussing what we think our priorities should be in the upcoming year based on feedback from a lot of folks, the Chamber of Commerce and others. And it's looking, unless this group wants to change that direction, that we want to focus on a couple things. One, I think we're kind of a victim of our own success, if you will, on the convention center. Stephen Perry, who kind of coordinates the convention center activity and operations run by Chuck Schneider, it's been doing very well since it opened, post City Hall construction. Had a lot of bookings, and we're on track to have more bookings even last year. In fact, we're booked from August through, I think, December already and into next year. So what we do want to think about is, where do we go with the convention center? We really made very few improvements to the convention center when we upgraded or when we built the new city hall. So we have literally like folding chairs that are pulled out. We have somewhat antiquated sound and video production system in the convention center. So question is, how much, if anything, do we invest to make it a bit more of a kind of first-class experience for those attending our events? And what other strategies do we have? Do we want to promote it more? You'll hear from Stephen when we say the convention center is booked. It's been booked for the weekends, and mostly during certain seasons. So, do we want to promote it more? Do we want to really do a promotion based on weekday solicitation for weekday business? Just basically, what do we want to do? Where do we want to be with the convention center going forward? So that's one area. The second area that we talked about, and we'll get into this in new business, is looking at, and this is based on a recommendation from the Chamber of Commerce here, is I think it was from you, Carol, establishing weekday rates for the convention center. And then, as always, we open things up for other ideas that people may have. The jurisdiction of this group is to set rates and policy recommendations in an advisory role to the Board of Commissioners for the bandstand, for convention center, special events. Am I forgetting something? And the parks. Okay, so the bandstand, I think we're in really good shape at the bandstand. There's been some capital improvements. We've got some, we had a good budget for those. We have an outstanding, Corey runs the bandstand, if we didn't mention that already, and he's an ad hoc member of this committee. We have an outstanding lineup this summer and always of a concert series going very well. Chief's pretty much been handling the special events, and that's going very well. He briefed us recently on the process for implementing the new special events ordinance, and I think we're all comfortable with that. So that's how we kind of narrowed it down to spending more time on the convention center, where we want to go with the convention center. I don't know, Steve or Peter, anything else you guys want to add before we actually get into the convention center? Steve, I don't know if your memory's maybe a little bit better than mine, but we had a great meeting with Sharon Lynn, set up a meeting, phone call meeting with the head of tourism for Provincetown, specifically to talk about convention center and what they did in P-Town. Do you want to recap or anything you recall from that meeting, and then I'll add in my side of it too.
I mean, without getting into too much of the details, because it was just kind of a sharing of ideas and information that we could consider depending on the direction that we want to go with use of the convention center, both during the week and on weekends, and how much promoting that we want to do. So, but there are clearly options. The nice thing about Provincetown is it's a similarly sized community. There's a lot of commonality between what they focus on and what we do here. And so we benefited from some really good ideas. And some of them included things like upgrading the facility so that it could be more effectively used for, I don't want to say necessarily bigger venues, because we're kind of limited to 900 attendees and things like that. But clearly we talked about the pros and cons of upgrades to the convention hall or convention center, as far as some of the things that Commissioner Schlosser mentioned with respect to seating and sound system and that type of thing. And so it gives us a lot to kind of think about in the recommendations that we make to the city manager and her team.
Great, thanks. Peter, anything from your end on just recapping? Okay, super. Yeah. Okay. So I guess we'll go ahead, and like I said, we're going to skip over old business 5A until Stephen can get here about 1:30 or so, and go right into convention center and future options. So I guess I'd like to open it up to the group and probably specifically to put you on the spot, Richard, and your first meeting.
You usually do.
I do, and you're very comfortable with that. So, so I guess I'd just love to hear any thoughts that you might have on how a city kind of, what we do do we do a study? Do we do, I mean, how do we move forward and think about and maybe make recommendations on where to go with our convention center? So please jump in.
If I could just give a little bit of history for the benefit of Kyle and Richard. About when we first looked at setting rates for this facility, we probably were a little bit overly aggressive in raising them, increasing them. And we got really good feedback from Stephen Perry and some of the other folks here, as well as from Carol Everhart and her team at the chamber. And so we revisited that and then scaled the rates back to pretty much where they were in 2017. And so as we consider rates going forward, we need to kind of keep that in mind. And by returning the rates to where they had been in 2017, we were able to increase the interest, and as evidenced by Commissioner Schlosser reporting on the bookings from August through the end of December. So just just give that to you as a little bit of background.
Actually, I'll give you a little bit. Well, I'm not going to give you. I'm going to ask Peter maybe to step in a little bit. We've had a lot of discussion over the past year as to, what is our convention center? Is it? I mean, it's called a convention center. It's always been called a convention center. The billboard says convention center. The sign in front of the building says convention center. But in some ways, it's what's the other term we use? Community center. So it's kind of almost a hybrid of those two things. And I don't know, Peter, if you want to give any of your insights that we've shared over the past year on that particular, or anything else relative to the convention center.
This is a tough one. When it was built, it was built as a convention center and marketed as such. But as Rehoboth has grown and other communities have grown, we now have some competition in the hotels, not only the Hyatt, but the new ones that are coming online, Cape Henlopen, and it's become much more of a community center than a convention center. The only problem with that is off-season. As our infrastructure grows, we need more tourism, and the convention center can be, as you know, a catalyst for bringing people who would not normally come to Rehoboth as day trippers or visiting friends, relatives, or so forth. So we're in a dilemma, and right now we're not really marketing it as strongly as we could as a convention center, and part of that is some of the furniture and fixtures, some of the sound, the lighting, some of the things that when we're compared with other venues, we're not going to rate very highly. We have Rehoboth, we have the location, we have some refurbishment that was done that was needed and is great, but we're not getting the kind of shows that would bring people into the restaurants, into the hotels, and so forth. So we have to make a decision. What is the best way to go? Do we want to be a hybrid? Community center, convention center? Do we just want to be a community center? Do we want to develop shows on the shoulder season that will bring maybe some day trippers in? There's a lot of things we could do. We could co-promote. Do we want to look at management? Do we want to change the way the facility is managed? You've talked to the director of tourism. I'm sure he gave you a lot of ideas with regard to management. I assume you know about New Orleans. Is that I built the first segment of the convention center in New Orleans, and I operated it for its first year in operation.
Love to pick your brain about some of the current issues. We'll do that later.
It's now one of the top 3 convention cities in the United States. But I'm not sure the city wants to go that way.
Right.
So it's a case of Steve having done a lot of work in getting together some survey information. It's now digesting that. And I think we have to go further. I think we have to have what we call a charrette, a brainstorm, where we bring people together and let's hear it. Let's hear what people want. And in those brainstorms, some great ideas come out. And all of a sudden, we see a path forward. But right now, it's a little fuzzy, but it's a great place. It's a facility that could be upgraded. If we don't do something, we're going to lose to the competition, particularly, I think, the newest hotel coming. But let's just wait and see what the council wants to do, what the community wants to do. And the more ideas, the more input we can get, the better.
Right.
What
Well,
are your initial thoughts here after?
operating without a lot of background information, it's great to understand Peter's background with large convention centers. My sense is that the hotels need business midweek off season as well, so that they should be a consideration as a partner with this building and marketing plan and facility. Because especially with the new bed tax going into effect, the ideal would be use this convention center, as you said, Peter, as the catalyst to help fill bedrooms, because bedrooms means meals and restaurant traffic. So I guess we have new competition with hotels, but not knowing other destinations on the shore, I would imagine Ocean City is probably one of our largest competitors in the meetings market. Let's not even call it conventions. Let's call it regional meetings for the sake of the size. And I would, recommend that we undertake, and you probably already have a study of what their current business is off-season and the likes of that current business. Is it only state business? Is it regional? Is it some corporate? Is it some training meetings? Is it certification meetings? Is it corporate retreats, large corporate retreats? Before we kind of figure out what the physical facility needs would be, let's look at what the ideal customer pool would be and kind of build around that customer pool rather than building something and then trying to attract a customer pool. And I saw in the May minutes that we did a survey, but I don't know if you've discussed survey results. It'd be interesting to see some of those survey results. But I like Peter's idea about bringing interested parties together in more of a larger, maybe a mini town hall or charrette meeting to find out what other people's needs are so that we can get them on board with the solution and maybe even co-invest in that solution. If I'm running a hotel and I'm running full on the weekends and running 40% Tuesday to out Friday, I'm ready to spend a little money in helping market something that's going to help get customers into the city and staying overnight. So that's just shooting from the hip without a lot of background information.
I didn't want to overwhelm you with any preconceived notions, it sounds like I
At least you
didn't.
didn't say, what is your marketing plan for the convention center,
No.
Richard and Kyle?
Yeah.
Kyle, any thoughts from your end as a business owner?
Yeah, the same kind of thing. Obviously, it'd be great to see some statistical evidence of where, and also what you were saying too is to actually figure out what the actual path is going to be and where everybody wants to go with it, because that's going to be a huge factor in it together also. But yeah, I couldn't see any negative in actually increasing more events here and stuff like that within the convention center, because of like you said, especially in the shoulder seasons and the off seasons, there's plenty of hotels that are still open but are operating at barely anybody at all in them, and there's still a lot of restaurants. We have like some of the best restaurants here on the East Coast, and there's still a lot of stuff. There's still a lot of stuff going on, but there's not really the large crowds of people that could be coming in, or the day trippers, or people coming in and staying for an extended 3 days while they go to a convention or something like that. So it'd be really interesting to see what the statistical evidence of like actually what is happening and what people are looking for. And I didn't even think about that, but as well, if you could work with some of the hotels as well, because they would obviously like to have their rooms filled, I think that could be really beneficial. It's like hard to see anything without looking at anything so far yet with the statistics, but
No, you guys just gave me a little bit of food for thought, and then Carol, I'll give you a minute to get your thoughts together. I'd love your input on this and how we can help. I think that's a great point of us all getting together with the businesses and find out how you guys put it, what is the ideal customer pool and what do we need and how can we work together? I think that's great. And then, my other thought that you just prompted was I totally forgot since I turned to Carol first. So I'm going to turn to you and not give you any more time, and I'll come back to what I was going to say since I forgot my thought. If you could come to a mic, you can sit. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, one thing that most of you may not know is there was a lot of work done in the past to corporate meetings. We belong to a lot of different groups. Our issue was when they got here, the hall didn't offer what they wanted.
What?
It did not offer what they needed.
Facility.
It was either too small or could not be enough breakout rooms. There were a number of issues that they needed in order to bring their group here that the hall just didn't provide. So we did that for years and years, and after maybe 6 or 7 years, we stopped doing that. We still put small ads in meeting and convention magazines, that type of thing, but we don't oversell because we don't have it to sell. What it is very successful at is anything that's community-based, nonprofit, small. If we bring in the music, it can be done, but I think everybody would agree it's difficult. And it's crowded. So to be successful for, an organizer who's putting on a show, they've got to have seating. I watched this in Ocean City. I worked there for many years. It was a very small hall in the beginning, and it is now a very large hall. So you're really comparing apples and oranges. They do a lot of entertainment there. They do, during the week, they do have quite a bit, and I can get that information if you'd like that. They do have a lot of meetings and groups. They also have the transit running right to the door. They have parking. They have all the things that those groups, you're smiling at me, are looking for. So when we go to sell it and they ask those questions, you have to be truthful, and we don't have what they're looking for normally. We do for smaller groups. If it's a small group, you got it. You can sell it. And it's so walkable is your big advantage, that even though you don't have the door-to-door transit, you do have the walkability. Now, it's February, and the groups want to meet, and it's nasty out. That can be a bit of an issue, but we did have hotels that were more than willing to work with us at that time and did, to bring from their hotel to the hall. You've got more availability in rental facilities in downtown than you used to have too. So the competition's growing. And I liked that I think you do need the input. I think they're gonna pretty much tell you what I'm saying to you. They like to have this as an overflow. So if they've already got something going on in the hotel, if they're at the Atlantic Sands or a hotel, they like to use this as an overflow and say, yes, we can handle your group, because while the A group is meeting at Atlantic Sands, the B group can go down to Convention Hall and meet there. It can be coordinated that way. And they do work, they've always worked with us with that type of thing before. So I do think, I will say this as far as rates go, if you consider raising rates again, do it slowly and gradually. So do a small amount every so many years. They hardly notice it. But when you do a huge increase, we saw it happen all at once, you're going to lose them.
The faucet dries up.
Yeah, you've got a lot of competition out there. Anybody got any questions? If I know, I'll tell you.
I just have a couple things. The thought I was going to make is, we are going to, I can't remember, Paul, when are we voting on the hotel accommodations tax? Is that August? Or is that not scheduled yet? Okay. So in the next few months, we'll be discussing as the Board of Commissioners. So some things you were saying, Kyle, kind of prompted in my memory. It'd be nice to kind of tie in the proposed accommodation tax if indeed it goes forward, which, you know, we'll have discussion and go from there. To tie in that, yes, we're raising this, but we also have a group that's going to be working with you to help, you know, figure out how we better fill your rooms going forward through the use and coordination with the convention center. So it'd be nice to tie from a cross-marketing perspective.
better, yeah.
Exactly. That we're not just imposing this accommodation tax, but we're also figuring out a way to benefit you going forward. with
Increased
some-
occupancy means more flow into the city.
That's right, that's right, and more revenue, right, exactly. So that was my thought process there. The other thing is, Carol, what are generally now the occupancy rates that you're seeing, like so far, like say just this summer, just to give these guys an idea? I know you publish a great report, it's online, I've looked at it, but just generally, what are you seeing?
Well, just this past weekend, we were at 98%, so we were there, and that's overall. So when the chamber does occupancy, every Wednesday, we call the hotels. Okay, we have over 90%, so whether they're downtown, Dewey, Route 1, other. When we call, we say, how many available rooms do you have for this upcoming weekend? And they tell us, so we know who to refer, okay? If they're full, we don't want to refer them. We don't want to give a visitor a full hotel. We want to tell them, here. At that same day, so I'm getting what's available this weekend, we're asking them, how did you end last week? And that's where I get the occupancy from. So I'm not predetermining. I'm giving you what they're telling me. So we keep the highest weekend night. So it's usually a Saturday, and we keep Wednesday. The reason we keep Wednesday is because we wanted to see what's going on midweek compared to the weekend. Well, while occupancy, if I said in downtown, has been basically flat over the year, okay, to slightly down, okay? Wednesdays, everywhere, have been up.
Wednesdays have been up.
Wednesdays, no, I'll bet you know why. What's your best guess?
Rates?
Rates, exactly, price point. So you hit a certain price point, and they're looking for, well, what, maybe I could stay 2 days if I stayed Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. That's where I think this hall in particular could be of the best benefit. You know, that midweek, that Monday through Thursday. I'm not saying the weekends can't be rented, but Monday through Thursday, there's some opportunity there where I know the hotels are seeing an increase, and they'd like to see an even bigger increase.
And we're getting, what, at least 3 new hotels that are in the works here in town, is that right, 3?
Mm-hmm.
All
So,
with meeting space?
2 at least, I don't know about the third
Meeting
one.
space?
at least 2, yeah.
So Carol brought up the issue, which I think is paramount. Maybe Peter will agree with me. Without breakout space, it's really hard to get any kind of a true conference convention. I mean, it's one thing to have a general session, but if they don't have a place to go and discuss those key issues in smaller groups, it's a real problem. Do we have any breakout rooms? I should know this, but
They have a what?
I think there's 3 here in the convention center.
Yes.
I believe it's 3.
So if, for example, we were ever going to build a parking structure
Yeah.
adjacent to this building, the ability to add meeting space there would seem like a wonderful opportunity because it'd be adjacent to, and you're already creating a new structure,
Interesting.
and being able to add space or move that into be the exhibit hall and the current space being chopped into breakout space. But I think you brought us new people on to dream big. And
Yeah,
kind of-
exactly. That's exactly it.
But again, hypothesizing all this until we know what our key customer group is and what our citizens are willing to partner with and invest in is kind of not necessarily the most productive. We need to know what our key customer
target market.
opportunity is, right? The target market.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And without a raked floor, entertainment is very, difficult in that building.
Without a what?
Raked floor.
Gotcha. Okay. Oh, interesting. Go ahead, Carol.
Nothing, I just, the marketing can be done. So if you decide that this is going to be a hybrid, and I kind of like that idea, because I think you can do both. It's just you're limited to how much you can do on the one end, how big you can go. We don't reach out, to my knowledge. We advertise the hall, we're given information. We always carry it in our visitor's guide, that type of thing. But there's no outreach to groups like, we used to have the trial lawyers, Delaware, we lost them to Ocean City, okay? We can reach out to those types of groups to come here. They're going to come not in season. They're going to come off season. And I think there's real opportunity there once we know this is what you would get, this is how much it would cost, and then we can go market that. You've got the means to market it mainly through the chamber if you so choose to do so. The staff's there. We market a lot of different things, and we can certainly do that. But if you ask me, are we pushing that hall? No.
Well,
We let
for
people
good
know
reason,
it's
right?
there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
I mean, it's telling
Yeah,
you that.
so
yeah.
we need to know, whatever it is the city would like this to be, this is the product, this is the cost of the product, this is how you go about securing that product with the timeline, that type of thing. That can be done. We can help you with that.
I personally feel that we should not reach too far in the convention area. We should really build up the community, and hopefully it expands with the type of events that bring people from a larger radius.
Well, I have to tell you, that's where you've always been most successful. I mean, we were filling that hall when you went right back to the more affordable rate for them, they came right back.
Yeah.
And that's growing. Those types of things are growing. Well, we could use the hall, we could use the hall. During the day, I think if it's sitting empty during the day, there may be some groups out there you want to reach out to that just do classes, that type of thing. There really isn't a local place to have a class unless you go to a hotel.
There's no reason that we could not have produced or produce a farmer's market off-season in that building. They've tried it at East Coast Nursery. Doesn't do very well.
I went.
But they're not doing it right.
Yeah,
All right.
Yeah.
You know.
yeah. There's a lot of indoor food things that can be done.
That's one day a week, every week. And there are other weekly things we could do. We could, provide some catalysts, give people an incentive to use the building. But we have to have experienced management that understands these types of things. I took the Carnegie Library in Washington from $250,000 a year to $1.2 million in a year and a half. It can be done.
You were going to say something.
I was just going to talk, the major trend in the meetings or even community events businesses around experiences, creating experiences and unique experiences. And if we leverage the asset of being next to the ocean and the boardwalk, and then key in on maybe a non-traditional meetings market, I'm sure Carol's familiar with a group called Unique Venues, and they actually, market Carnegie Library type venues or office buildings or city clubs, and our building kind of fits into a unique venue kind of market. And there's a conference, and you can kind of become one of the users groups and understand kind of the nuances of taking a square peg and marketing it across things, and that might be a worthwhile exercise.
That's a very, that's exactly why
Here to
you
help.
guys are here.
So
Yeah.
If we can make it happen, we will. So we just need direction. Just tell us, this is where we want to go.
Yeah, I love that. And I guess I started personally just in these discussions and brainstorming, and just seeing the three new hotels and then combined with the occupancy
I think it's
potential.
6 new hotels.
Is it that many?
Well, downtown.
Downtown, it's
Yeah,
three.
but still,
Yeah, so, and then combine that with a potential, accommodations tax, like, so what can we actually be driving as an overlay to turn this into a positive? We have these great new hotels. We have an opportunity to bring in more revenue for the city, like you said, Richard. And how do we tie that into the convention center? I know, when I worked full-time, I used to go to this conference, and I'm not saying we're San Francisco, I'm not, or should we be? Okay, I'm not saying that with this comment I'm about to make, but we went to the biggest conference in my particular area of expertise, and it was in San Francisco once a year, and every venue in San Francisco supported this one big event. So the convention center had breakout rooms, but every hotel had breakout rooms, restaurants, set up meeting spaces. So it became, just a big event that everybody was engaged in. It brought in tons of revenue for the city. The occupancy rates were through the roof because every hotel was a partner in this event. The convention center and the city were partners. So, I mean, that's another way to look at it. We're going to have all these things. Do we maybe pick one or two events going forward that are really big, but it's the whole town's engaged in the really big events? So, like Sea Witch, yeah, exactly. But with, okay, maybe there's not enough breakout rooms in the convention center, but maybe there's breakout rooms in A hotel and B hotel and C hotel. So anyway, there's just tons of options and thinking big. So I think now's our opportunity to do that. I wanted to ask Carol if you'd be willing to help us with perhaps if a couple people are willing to maybe start to think about starting with understanding what the the user base is, what they want. And it seems to me the perfect starting point for that is through the chamber, and maybe having you set up a couple meetings, maybe some meetings with the hotels, with the business owners, to start to get some ideas. Is that something you'd be willing to, if that's, you guys think, or you guys
that'd be
think,
great.
everybody
We can do that.
thinks that might
Girls
be,
get all this, historical intelligence.
exactly.
Old.
I didn't say that, Carol.
So if that's okay, maybe I can ask a couple people who are willing to raise their hand and volunteer. Oh, thank you, Richard. Thank you, Kyle. Anybody else? Get together with
I'll
Carol.
volunteer, but I'm not sure the council, specifically the mayor, want us to do this.
Well, the mayor's one person, every commissioner is one person, so I think the goal is, and I don't think that's actually true. I think they want to see
Well,
what
they
a
certainly
strategy.
stood over there and said it.
Well, yeah, it was several months ago.
but
and,
it's-
yeah.
But I think the difference here, compared to how this was introduced previously,
Yeah.
is that we're looking for what, we're not trying to start with an answer and figure out how to get there.
Right.
And so this is more of a bottoms-up type look at the possibilities. And I think if we do it that way and interest is generated, then it's the possibilities are probably things we hadn't really contemplated. Because there's got to be a number of good strategic reasons why people are willing to invest in starting new hotels here. And one's not so new, but it's coming back. But I think if we can pull in the existing hotel owners and see, and especially with Richard and Peter, not to discount Kyle in any way, but we really have a great talent here for this type of thing in conventions and what the possibilities are, and thinking outside the one facility, but thinking about what the community project, what it could be.
Leveraging the assets.
Exactly.
Totally agree.
And back to what Lisa was saying about her experience in going to a convention in San Francisco and how the whole network of venues pull together to do that kind of thing. And we certainly have the possibility here to explore the possibility of those kind of things.
There's a lot of activities around that are very healthy for a community. I mean, I used to head up sales for the Boston Convention and Visitors Bureau for 3 years in the mid-90s, and it was a very dysfunctional group. I mean, you've worked with cities that are dysfunctional, and if you get, we were bidding on this one group as a community, the American Society of Association Executives, and everyone had to come around and get together and, you know, make not only intellectual investments, but financial investments. And the end result after winning this convention was a changed community. I mean, people were willing to, you know, sing from the same hymn book around convention marketing, like Super Bowl, right? Any big activity, political conventions. I mean, you know, you're not only putting your mouth where you're going, but you're putting your money and making those investments with real returns. And it can really turn a city around in terms of functioning in a single voice around tourism or visitor industry.
To me, the fact that we have, I call it 6, but 3 in Rehoboth, the people that do the marketing studies know something that we should know, and I think a lot of us do. And that means there will be a convention center in Sussex County.
Couldn't agree more.
That's actually an excellent point, and that's why also I think, Kyle, your expertise here with data and data management.
Yeah, so
and
I'm like, that's why I'm being
statistical,
quiet. I like the
know.
numbers. I like to look at them and figure out, 'cause the
Yeah.
more information you have, you can make a better, you can make, you know, an actual informed decision.
And actually, when we were
Exactly.
looking at the rates a little over a year ago, Peter had done great research on looking at comparable size venues in this part of Sussex, even going up to southeastern Pennsylvania to look at them. And so data supported, the raw data supported an increase in rates, but we hadn't done the local exploring to see what was really, you know, we didn't connect all the dots to see what would make the best sense. So without kind of capturing that part of the
extra piece of the puzzle there.
the extra piece of that puzzle, it wasn't as helpful as it otherwise could have been. And again, I think what we want to do is make sure that we don't forget I mean, one of the things that people love about Rehoboth Beach is the sense of community. And that's kind of not thinking big, it's kind of thinking smaller. And so if we could right-size this, you know, by being true to all of the different factions who are interested in success in the city, I mean, I think that could be an incredibly powerful, unique experience and create, like Richard said, kind of a whole new, you could transform it, but without blowing it up.
Are most of the events that are currently here, are they from groups coming from outside coming in, or are they from the community?
Perfect lead into Stephen. Why don't you come on up to the table and chit chat with us about where we are with things? Come on up.
I would say from the community.
Community, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and there's some that are from outside, but it's like from Dover or, you know, Wilmington, not super far away.
Well, and I'll sing his praises because he's here, but Stephen has done a great job because of his connections in the entertainment world to get the word out about our facility here. And I mean, I had the pleasure of seeing Judy Collins, which was, I never would have thought I could have seen Judy Collins in Rehoboth Beach, but it was a great event. And he was instrumental in making things like that happen, the Vienna Choir Boys. And so, I mean, we have a good start. It's just how do we right-size it and how do we grow smartly or make changes in a way that's going to result in success and not get way too big too fast so that it turns people off.
That's great. Well, that's a good segue into Stephen
I'm
maybe
late.
giving us a quick update on where we are with
Yeah, I
just
just
for
ran the numbers
knowledge.
really quick. It's not
Sure.
a big change from last
Yep.
month. Right now, the bookings for the convention center are at $79,412.50. Last year in total, we did $86,040. So it's
What was
looking okay.
the two numbers again?
I'm sorry, $79,412.50 are the current bookings we have right now. In 2018 in total, we did $86,040. I'm sorry, $86,040.
Is the mix pretty much the same?
I mean, probably
You gave us
75% to
a written
80%.
report last week.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't have a chance to do that
That's
this
all
time.
right, I'm just using it to
Maybe just
compare.
2 events added to that. Probably about 75% is the exact same events that we had last year, you know, so it's very similar. very
Any
close.
issues,
Issues, what do you mean?
problems, challenges, broken equipment?
Do we do a post-event evaluation with the client?
Let's talk about that.
Very informally.
Actually,
Yeah,
that's
just
perfect.
very informally. I always just ask for feedback because I mean, it's very informal the way I book things. I meet the people, I talk to them, they email me, I call them. You know, it's very kind of friendly relationship, not business-like per se. And I just always email them afterwards and say, please let me know anything, positive, negative, in between, anything we could do better, anything you didn't like. And you know, feedback is for the staff overwhelmingly positive. It means I'd say the one complaint or concern I always get is the seats aren't comfortable. But the, you know, people for the events they do, they're satisfied with the equipment and the facilities. I mean, I show it to them all in advance, and I don't try to oversell it, so they know what they're getting for their money. But the seats, they hear from their people, I think they could be a little more comfortable. But they're folded chairs. I mean,
Yeah, you
it's
hear
only
it.
so much padding you can put on a folding chair,
Right,
unfortunately.
Yeah, the negative, you most get the negative on the street. The chairs, the air conditioning, the sound. That's pretty, even in these great events, you know, there are people complaining about the sound and the temperature.
I don't know. I've been to all the events. I've never had a problem with the sound myself, and I like things cold, so I'm fine with the temperature.
Yeah, I'm not that discriminating either, so.
Just while we're on that topic, the mayor had asked after our
I mean, the
short
best thing is people that rebook.
Yes.
Once they come back, you know, and they know what they're getting, but we should enhance it to get more people.
Yeah, I mean, anything can always be improved. I think.
So the mayor had asked that you send out a note to everybody that's booked maybe past year or so, just a quick little survey and
Still
get some
working on that,
feedback. So
unfortunately, yeah.
I just wanted to mention that. I don't know if it's something you want to run by a couple of folks here, you know, who've done this before. And not that, I mean, I know you do it very well, but maybe there's some other ideas too to
Yeah,
get
if
some
you
good
wouldn't mind giving me your
feedback.
contact information, I wouldn't mind running by what I have. I mean, I just was going to ask maybe 10 questions again, because
Yeah,
Survey monkey.
from most of the people I've already gotten feedback. You know, I'm just going to
yeah.
reiterate it and have like maybe 10, 12 concise questions and just say anything else. So.
Great.
Okay.
Parking an issue?
Parking has not been an issue as far as I know. There's one issue during the Judy Collins event when the police department had taken over a part of the parking lot without really
police
clearing it with
department,
people,
I
but we
swear.
hopefully got it cleared up, you know.
Yeah.
Forgot he was in here.
No.
It's okay. I gave
So, but no, he
Sharon
was
that
very
feedback
responsive and he
too.
got it cleared up really quickly, so it was fine. But
What happened is if I may,
Sure.
sure.
it's actually somewhat good thing. There was a tour coming in, a bike tour for Police Week, but some hotels that are booked have always used us for overflow, so we didn't know anything was going on here necessarily, or they did. So they just told the guys when they register with their truck and trailer, they come over to the convention center as they did every year.
Interesting.
But because of that, now I'm definitely in
Got
more
it.
close contact
Yeah,
with
yeah,
every
yeah.
event, so it actually was a good thing that.
Hotels moved on to
Yeah.
our parking lot.
Those hotels.
Yeah.
It all worked out, that's good, that means
Yeah.
we had visitors in their hotels.
Yeah.
And they were using it, so.
And that was probably the biggest.
Interesting.
That was probably the
Okay.
biggest event we've had this year too. So that was the only time when like every space was full in that parking lot for sure.
Oh, fascinating.
How
Interesting how
is
that
parking
happens.
revenue so far, do we know?
I have no idea about parking.
It's slightly up.
city.
As Sharon reported, I think, at our
The
last
city
meeting.
manager reports on that. I think at our, the
regular meeting.
The regular meeting, she gives updates on that.
She said it was slightly up, but I'm not sure about that in relative terms. So
Yeah.
we also raised rates. So I'm not quite sure if there's actually more people parking or more revenue because we've raised rates. So we'll get a clarification on that at our next meeting.
They said that 4th of July parking was no issue.
I haven't heard of any
Is
issues.
that right, or?
But I think traffic flow was really well managed
Yeah, very much.
on the 4th. And I mean, it was, it really, not that I noticed it wasn't good like last year and the year before, but I noticed that there was, you know, it was, I think it was much more intuitive for people. And they were given advance notice on where there were going to be parking limits, and they could respond accordingly. And I think for the most part, people did.
Okay, thanks. Do you want just real quick on weddings?
Weddings,
how are we
right now
doing
we have
there?
56 weddings booked. Last year at this time, 56. Last year, this time we had 63.
Okay,
So I think last time I reported to you, we were like 15 behind. Now we're 6 behind, so they're catching up a little bit, it seems like.
cool. Okay.
And what is, or don't you know, the most favored location?
I really don't. The Henlopen Hotel and the Atlantic Sands are the biggest two, I'd say.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate it. So I think we have a couple of actions that came out of that discussion. And Steve, you said this very well. I'm going to try to recap it, but you'll say it much better than I, of course. But I think what's different from the last time we started looking at the convention center to this time is last time it seemed we came in with, let's promote the convention center more, as opposed to how we're doing it now, which is what do we really need? What does the user base need? So it's a different look, like you said, the ground up. So I actually do believe that the mayor's supportive of that and others, given 2 other variables that have changed since the first time we kind of tried to look at this. One is we are getting closer to having 3 new hotels in town, and 2, we are looking at that accommodation tax. So with those 2 factors, as I think it's time to relook, but maybe in a different way. So that's where we are. All right, great. If there's no other comments or questions on that, we'll go ahead to new business. And the weekday rates, I'll just recap, Carol, if you want to add anything else. I believe it was you that brought it up that some folks, or maybe it was you, Stephen, had asked if we have weekday rates for the convention center. Do you want to just recap that real
Hourly
quick?
rates.
Or hourly?
In line with, could they rent it hourly?
Hourly, sorry.
Because if you're giving a class or a seminar or something, they're looking for, so many hours, not necessarily a whole day's rate. So that was the question we got.
Okay, got it.
I
So,
think that one of the things you had mentioned was like a half-day rate and then maybe an hourly rate.
You could certainly do that too. As long as they know in advance, then they can choose what works for them,
so I think that's exactly what this committee's one of the things we're supposed to do. So I think we need to look at that, so.
Yeah, and what I was thinking is we have a daily rate for midweek that is, since we're already booked pretty much through the end of the year on the weekends, that there's no need to, I don't think there's any need to do anything with that. But we could just prorate basically the daily rate for the midweek and just come up with an hourly and a half-day rate based on that. So it's just a division by number of hours or by, to get those rates that would be in line with what people are being charged today.
Well, I would agree with that, but then I would compare it with your competition.
Yeah.
And then I would feel initially agreeable to some negotiation.
Yes. And I think
But
that's
you have to know their business plan
right.
to see if it fits in.
And base costs, there's a setup cost, right? Is that included in the rental, or is that all separate?
Well, actually, some of the ideas that came across my desk were, if you had a yoga class in there, is there anything you will not allow in there? I guess that's the question.
Right.
What wouldn't you like to see in the hall? Otherwise, an hourly rate for, they even have kids tumbling classes, all that type of thing, that this hall is perfect for, and that does not bring a lot of cars. Now, does it add to the economic development? Well, they'll probably have lunch or something in town. But it adds to the need to purchase what you need for the hall. If you need new chairs, for heaven's sakes, you could probably fill that hall with daytime activities that weren't conventions or meetings, but provided some income for what you need.
To the coffers.
Yeah, we've just never reached out to that group, but I'm an old Parks and Rec gal, so I hate to see an empty room, because I know there's people that would use the empty room if you're not already using it.
Right, right.
Even if it's at an old,
Have people currently asked about it?
Yes.
They have? Okay.
Yes.
There's demand for it.
yes. There's I don't know that it's a lot. I can't tell you that because we've not marketed or pushed it out in that way. But once you decide this is what it is, and, you know, these times a year, we're going to do this, and there's an hourly rate for, you know, somebody who wants to, you know, the jazzercise classes, all that type of thing. I mean, there's an opportunity there, and I'm assuming you're already insured for it, so,
Great. Thanks, Carol.
okay.
Excellent. Thank you. Is that something maybe you could just put together and kind of an idea?
Yeah, no,
Steve,
this is
maybe?
good. No.
Okay, cool.
So,
Were you going to say something else?
Oh, I just wanted to, one of the things that we did, and this is more for the benefit of Richard and Kyle, is a couple months ago, we put together a short questionnaire to get to capture input from Carol and her team at the Chamber of Commerce, as well as to the key members of the City Hall here, to include the city manager, Corey, Stephen, Chris Johnson, and others that are involved in these different venues that we have responsibility to separate. But this was primarily for the convention center. And I have all that input, but I haven't had a chance to compile it yet. So before our next meeting, I'll be able to put that together, and if we can see what the highlights are from that and how it ties into the conversation that we've had today. But clearly, it is key information that will help inform us as we go forward.
Okay. We'll be reaching out through Sharon. I think she was going to pull together comments from.
No,
from
I
her
I
to
got
me.
that. I
You
have
have
that.
that.
I
Okay.
do.
Oh,
I do.
super. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Okay, great. All right, cool. Are there any other committee member comments or discussions, ideas that you want to bring forward at this point? Okay. Are there any other citizen comments, Chief or anyone? Corey, anything? Okay. So again, congrats on so far very safe events, Chief, for the summer season, and on a good bandstand
I
program.
tell you,
It's really cool.
It's been great, man. I saw Jesse Guerin the other night. I mean, what a great performer he and his family are. And it was like Elvis was in town. So it was
That's awesome.
absolutely awesome. So you continue to set the bar high every summer.
That's really
Thank
fun.
you for that.
Yeah, really fun. It gets better every
Not to
summer.
be
Yeah.
negative, but
Yeah.
any issues? No? Great.
The crowds have been great, a lot of participation. Man, we just,
Absolutely. I think businesses should be hopefully fulfilled.
Do you have any
I
issues?
personally can say that they've been coming in to my shop and going out and grabbing stuff and stuff like that. So yeah, there's been an increase specifically when there's some things going on at the bandstand
Yeah.
up there. So yeah.
and it's an incredible variety of entertainment. So
Any
Yeah.
concern with alcohol?
No,
Great.
no, we haven't had, and we always have placement on staff. There's always somebody stationed. Every time we have an event, there's someone that is there authoritative wise.
The only
Chief.
thing I was gonna add is, that we recognize is a lot of people, some businesses downtown will complain we're not letting people park after the event started, but if you look at the success of the events, the crowds have actually increased and they're actually in the roadway.
yeah.
And unfortunately, you just let somebody park and then they're trying to back out and go around people, and then they actually start backing up all the way down to get out and around. It's a balancing act that we just need to make sure that the business owners understand why. It's not to be mean. If there's a handicap spot and we can get some people up there, we will, but we try to question them before they come in. Are you going to be here for an hour or two? Could events, before it gets too crowded, but once it gets crowded and people are out in the street, you just can't move the people safely enough. So you may get some pushback on that. That's been an ongoing problem.
Does the city have bicycle rack fence?
I'm sorry?
Does the city have bicycle rack fence like Carol rents for Seawood?
No. We put cones up and a police officer down there, so we're monitoring who goes in. But they see some vacant spots and businesses question that to us. I'm
Yeah.
just bringing it up on why, because so many people are in the roadway, and if they start backing up, we have to.
You should seriously
Safety.
consider
Yeah.
getting it and putting
So-
it around to prevent that.
Right. We haven't had people wanting to cross because the police officer's there. I'm just saying
Right.
people pull up there and can see the spots, and because the businesses kind of question why not. But, it all works out. I'm just kind of giving it to you for the committee to understand in case you get those questions on
No,
why
I
we do
think
it.
you all do a great job of kind of monitoring the reality of it. Because I've been thrilled. I mean, I'm one of those folks standing in the street sometimes because I'm not there early enough to get a seat. But it all works out, and it's a
I'm
real
just bringing it
credit.
forward to the committee in
Yeah.
case
That's
you get
good,
those
we asked, yeah.
comments.
That's great. Thanks, Chief. All right, so I'm going to move to action items here. I counted 4 action items. One is that Richard and Kyle are going to get with Carol and hopefully arrange some meetings with various stakeholders in the convention center, the hotels, other businesses, et cetera, and get some ideas on where we want to go here to start off this look. Richard, I think, is going to just work with Steve and on some ideas for that survey, any input you might have, or anybody else, I guess, that wants to get engaged with that, please do. And then Steve and Peter, I think, are going to look at the hourly rates.
I'll do it, and I'll run it by you.
Okay. And then Steve, you're going to give us just some feedback on that survey.
Yes.
At the next meeting. And then in terms of the next meeting date, should we have a meeting in August, just given how Carol's like, no. Already, he didn't have to say anything. Or should we just kind of wait till after Labor Day and have our next meeting when things are a little bit quieter for the businesses? What do you guys think? Is that okay?
That's fine.
Probably beneficial for me as well.
Okay, it sounds like it. Okay, let's go ahead. We'll schedule the next meeting for probably the full week after Labor Day. Or sometime around that time frame.
Week of Labor Day?
Or the end of the week of Labor Day, perhaps. I'll send out some ideas on next date, but it'll be around that time frame. Okay, cool. All right. Are there anything else from anybody here or up here or anybody? Okay, great.